Welcome, everybody. It's a new season of Aspire to Inspire, your favorite and most inspiring YouTube show and podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Blaylock, the Chief Energy Officer of Ingenuity Solutions, and Aspire to Inspire is a production of Embrace the Power Network. We're so glad you're here, and we're so excited to kick off our season with an extremely special guest who's doing incredible things to change the trajectory for returning citizens. And so it is my pleasure to welcome Miss Amelia Nickerson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of First Step Staffing. Amelia, it's so great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Awesome. So tell our listeners, what is First Step Staffing and why should they be inspired by it?
Great. So First Step Staffing is now the country's largest nonprofit staffing agency.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. So we are a 501c3. We employ a staffing business model in order to hire and support men and women who've been experiencing homelessness, veterans, and those impacted by the criminal justice system is a way to help them get back on their feet, earn some income, provide some additional support services so they can not just get the job, but can keep the job and move into higher wages. We started in Atlanta in 2007. We've been growing pretty rapidly these last few years. So we now actually operate in 7 states and employ about 8,000 men and women a year.
Outstanding. So tell us a little bit about, we hear all the time about not having enough staffing to fill positions, more open jobs than people who want them. Why are the populations that you work with and that you connect employers to, why are they the best fit, the right choices for those organizations, companies out there who are looking for highly qualified men and women to fill their jobs?
Yeah. So I think when you hear kind of who we're employing and who we're supporting in the workforce, again, those folks who may be experiencing homelessness or coming out of the criminal justice system, the first thing that people start to think about is barriers, stereotypes of what that might look like. That group often gets deemed too hard to employ, too risky to employ. But we call those folks untapped talent. They're really people who quite honestly have kind of pulled themselves up by their bootstraps heroically through a lot of difficult circumstance, may have experienced some trauma in their life. But every single person who walks to our door to get a job is there not because somebody made them, but because they're interested in working and getting back on their feet. So they make really great employees. They're motivated. They're the folks who are going to show up every day with a good attitude because they're the ones trying to turn their life around. And I think we've proven it over and over again. We work with over 100 different businesses on any given year, helping fill that kind of untapped labor pool. And we have great retention rates. So not only do they show up on the first day, but they show up on the 30th day and the 90th and the 365th day. So we know with the right opportunity and the right support, these folks make great employees.
I love it. You mentioned some of the barriers that these individuals face, whether it's someone with a disability or a veteran or a returning citizen. Mm-hmm. What sort of support resources or wraparound support resources does First Step Staffing offer?
Yeah, we know there's a few barriers that kind of hit a lot of the populations we're trying to help. The biggest one of those is transportation. A lot of the folks don't have cars or getting access to public transportation from where they're living and where the jobs are is often very difficult. So the biggest thing we do it in all of our markets, is a transportation program, literally rides to and from work every day. Those are partnerships with Uber and Enterprise Rideshare. We do about 100,000 rides a year. We also have some additional programs that do everything from direct housing assistance for those men and women who are actively experiencing homelessness to free upskilling and training opportunities. So if they're interested in getting a CDL license or some other opportunity where they could move into those higher wage jobs and take a job and turn it into a career, we have those as well. And then we work with a lot of really, really great organizations across the country that are doing good work around mental health supports and mentorship and other additional coaching that they can receive as they're getting back on their feet. So like I said, it's really not just about getting the job. It's about keeping the job and how you ultimately move into a better job.
I love that. What are some of the key industry sectors or areas where you're finding companies are coming to you and finding success in working and partnering with First Step Staffing?
Yeah, we tend to focus a lot in the light industrial, logistics, manufacturing, and hospitality spaces. For a few reasons. One, we know that these are a lot of industries and a lot of companies. They're already used to using a staffing model to onboard, to recruit, to find those next candidates and fill those hiring needs. We're just carving out a small piece of that for that group that's getting left on the sidelines, quite honestly, and not getting those opportunities. So anybody who's in kind of the warehouse and logistics and manufacturing and a lot of hospitality jobs as well. So whether that's event driven things, we staff groups like the Braves and the Phillies, or if it's in the hotel industry, we're very used to staffing those types of positions.
I love that. You mentioned you're in how many different cities now?
We are in 8 cities across 7 states. So we have operations here in Georgia and Atlanta and Augusta. We also work in Orlando, Nashville, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Dallas, Texas, and Southern California.
Outstanding.
And we are looking at where we might go next. So
I was just going to say, how do you pick those locations, and how do communities that might be interested in this, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so we are actively pursuing additional expansion opportunities today. So we're talking to a lot of interested cities. And for us, it's kind of a 3-step stool, right? We need to have jobs contracts because our model is employment. Employment, we think, is a critical component from coming out of homelessness and poverty. So we need to be able to connect with those local businesses that have hiring needs and are interested in working with our model. We need a great pipeline of individuals who are otherwise getting left out of the system. So that comes from our nonprofit partners, your government agencies, groups that are already doing really great work around things like housing, food support, mental health services. We like to come in and help be the jobs people, and we needed to be additive to that system. And the third is just local community buy-in, where they agree with us and see that, income and employment is a critical component of kind of helping people overcome their circumstance. So we're going to have support on the ground from both those incoming individuals and those jobs. So local support, jobs, and people is the secret sauce.
I love it. I love it. You mentioned you just celebrated an anniversary in Philadelphia. Tell us a little bit about what success looks like in a city.
We did. So we had a great celebration in our Philadelphia office last week. A lot of our partners and funders, the mayor attended. First Up Philadelphia opened in January 2018. Okay. That was a unique opening for us. We actually acquired a for-profit staffing company. So we went in, bought a book of business, and were able to start to transition those jobs into jobs that could serve the populations we're trying to help. Over the course of the last 5 years, our First Step Philadelphia office has employed 16,556 individuals.
Love it.
We have given out 172,000 rides to work, and we have paid $101 million in wages in those 5 years. So you can see how quickly, if a community is willing to invest in the First Step model, it quickly returns right back into dollars in the pockets of the people who need it.
I love it. Now, you mentioned that First Step Staffing is a nonprofit, a 501c3. How does that work? What makes that different from a traditional for-profit staffing agency?
Yeah, I think our biggest difference is while we do have a business model, we're mission driven. So for-profit staffing companies, a lot of them have the same kind of heart for what we do. They're trying to help businesses succeed and help an individual find that right job. But at the end of the day, their main goal is servicing shareholders and making sure that they're making a profit. Staffing is a profitable business. Quite honestly, it's a $270 billion business in the U.S. It's massive. We really are just taking that business model, which allows us to create a lot of earned revenue for the programs that we do. So our business model is about 95% earned revenue and only 5% philanthropy. So we can do a lot with a little bit of philanthropy to help with those retention services, the transportation, the housing assistance. And we're mission focused. So we are actively trying to screen in the people that get screened out everywhere else, and making sure that those individuals are kind of, like I said, back off the sidelines, back in the labor market, and able to take control of their own lives.
I love that. You've talked about, the philanthropy element and some of your business partners. Who are some of those business partners that have really rallied around the mission of First Step Staffing, and why do you think they've come to the table?
Yeah, like I said, we work with over 100 different businesses on any given year. And it really does run the gamut of some large companies we would all recognize the name of, folks like Coca-Cola Bottling and 1-800-Flowers, to your smaller, mid-size logistics companies who maybe you haven't heard of, but happens to be doing all of the back office for a Walmart or a Home Depot, and they're doing a lot of the fulfillment for those organizations. We like companies of all size. We like opportunities because people are people and they don't want to work at the same job. So we like to have different options for them. And then on the hospitality front, it really is really great groups like the Braves and the Phillies and the Hawks that have really embraced what we do as a way to get people reconnected to employment. So like I said, a lot of stuff in the light industrial manufacturing, logistics space, and then hospitality. And we'll work with anybody who's interested in having their jobs filled by really great people.
I love it. And it sounds like your focus or emphasis is more on careers versus just jobs, right? Sustainable careers. I love that. Are there any sort of coaching or mentoring or sort of case management to help them with their workplace and professional skills development?
We do. So all of our clients, we call the individuals that we hire and place our clients, work directly with a job coach. And in our world, a job coach is much like a staffing recruiter, but our job coaches at First Up go through some significant training that enables them to do a better job working with certain populations. So there's certifications with the Homeless Training Institute. They get trauma-informed care, de-escalation, so that they know how to kind of connect with individuals who might be coming from more traumatic backgrounds. They're there to do day-to-day coaching, check-in points. If something does go awry and a job is not a good fit for somebody for some reason, they can step in and help do some coaching to give them back into a better opportunity. And then we have an entirely separate retention services team that can step in to help with those things like housing assistance and free upskilling and financial literacy, so that the job coach can really focus on the job component, and our retention services team can help take care of all those other wraparound services.
I love it. I was going to ask you about financial services. I know obviously with housing instability and transportation and sort of getting yourself reestablished, it can be really tough. Every dollar counts. So that's
it is. Yeah. It's actually very expensive to be poor, unfortunately.
It is. Yes, it
There's
is.
a whole lot of things that you don't know if you haven't lived it yourself, but your credit score is affecting your ability to even get an apartment or to apply for an apartment to rent. If you don't have a bank account, about 70% of our folks are unbanked. They're not even with a bank. And it's that much more expensive just to get access to the money that they earn. So we do a lot of programs now with a lot of great banks, Truist, TD, and several others, to be able to introduce some banking elements into what we're doing.
I love that. What are you seeing in, really the first 30, 60 days when a partner or client comes into you and they're placed at, in a position? How is that experience like when they're being onboarded?
So, well, from the client's perspective, I think we hear a lot of shock and awe that they are getting offered a real legitimate job. In many cases, particularly for those coming out of the criminal justice system, First Step may not be their first stop. They've often tried other places, and they are utterly shocked when they walk in our door and we give them a job, because they've never had a job before. So I think there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of gratitude. There's probably a little bit of fear going into an unknown situation. So we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that person has all the details about where they're supposed to show up, what they should expect from a supervisor, what they should expect on the job site to prep them for where they're going, and then knowing that they can reach out to that job coach at any given time. And then we're working directly with the supervisors on the job sites, right, to make sure that the people are showing up on time, that the behavior is what they need, that they're getting the work they need done, and just doing those check-ins with the work site as well to make sure that their needs are being met.
Absolutely. So how do companies find out about you? How are you getting connected?
So, you can always find us on our website. It's firstupstaffing.com. We're pretty easy to find. There's information there on about how you can reach me personally. You can reach any member of our sales team. You can do any of that. We're on all the social media channels as well. We have a full sales team that's happy to answer any questions that a company might have around what our contracts look like, what the process looks like on working with First Step. I tell people if they're used to using a staffing company for any of their HR needs, we look, feel, and smell just like those staffing companies who are just coming at it from a different perspective, and then can offer a lot of those additional services that a for-profit staffing company may not be able to offer, like transportation to make sure people show up on time every day. So you can find us on the website, and myself or any of my team are always happy to have those conversations.
I love it. How are you sourcing your talent?
So all of our clients generally come from our nonprofit partners. So we have built a huge ecosystem of phenomenal nonprofit and government partners that range from groups like the Salvation Army, from the Department of Supervision and Corrections and the VA, to your local soup kitchens and food pantries and groups that are just out doing good work in the community so that they know that they can send individuals to First Step who are looking for employment. So they're our first, reach out into the community. They're our barrier kind of check to see if somebody's ready for work, and if they're in that headspace where they're ready to start going to work. And we'll take walk-ins almost every day of the week. And I will tell you from a business perspective, every office I have has a line out the door.
Wow.
So if you need people, we've got people.
I love it. I love it. That makes me so excited to hear that. And I know a lot of employers out there, and you've mentioned you work with employers of all sizes. I'm sure you've got some small businesses, some mid-size, some large corporations, et cetera.
We do. So whether you're trying to hire one person or 300 people, we have a pipeline of folks who are ready to go. And we're used to working with different size organizations as well.
Outstanding. What has been, with the disruption of the workplace and, sort of the transition to work from home and things like that, what have been some of the most significant changes you've seen that these individuals in your talent pipeline have had to respond or be, ready for in today's workforce?
Yeah, well, on two things. On the employer front, I think the last few years have taught us to be more open in our hiring practices.
Sure.
So we saw a lot of businesses get really at least start to tiptoe into more flexibility around second chance hiring and having real conversations around what that could look like for an individual, and not relying on those stereotypes and allowing us to kind of be the person who can come in and help them de-risk that situation. Because the way we work is we'll serve as the employer of record and cover that workers' comp insurance and do that work initially for the employer. I think on the other side, quite honestly, a lot of the work that we staff, a lot of the work that our clients are doing, even through the pandemic, was all deemed essential work.
Sure.
This is the work that has to happen every day to keep our economy running. It was work that sadly got overlooked and was looked down upon pre-COVID. And then everybody realized just how essential it is that the mail still shows up and the food still gets made and the trucks are still on the road with what we need to get, particularly as everybody started ordering from home. So I think people now have a new respect for this type of work. The wages are reflecting it. We're seeing much higher wages for the work, which is a great thing for individuals trying to get back on their feet. So I think what we've learned is we've got a great workforce that we depend on as a society, and we're seeing that respect start to play out in how they're getting treated in the workplace too.
I love that. I think it's so important. Yes, I think to some extent it's been a shift in the balance of power, but I think it needed to happen, right? Because as you mentioned, the work that gets completed is so essential. What advice would you give to individuals who are in some of those target groups and populations that you work with, who are feeling a little bit dejected, who, I don't want to be rejected from one more position. I don't want to get somewhere and not be successful. I'm scared to dip my toe back into the water. It's safer to just stay here. So what advice would you give to them?
I think it comes down to a mindset change for a lot of individuals. I will tell you, most of the employers we work with, now there are some skilled positions where you might have to have a forklift certification, but that what they're really looking for is people that they can depend on that have a good attitude. So if you can guarantee that you can just try and show up every day and work your hardest and have a good attitude about it, you can find a great job right now. You can find employers that are going to recognize that and want to be able to move you up that pipeline. So you're moving into higher wage positions and management positions. So I think if you're just willing to try, you can see a lot of success very quickly in today's market. And if you're in a city with First Step, come to us and we'll make sure you got a job the next day. So
I love it. So that's how quickly it works.
It does. So our process is about a 2-hour in-person orientation.
Wow.
You do have to do an orientation in person.
Okay.
We'll take forms of ID. You'll be filling out employment paperwork and doing some of the background. We'll talk to you about the types of jobs we have, how our process works. And then our goal is to get somebody working within 72 hours or less.
That's
Because we
impressive.
know without income, a lot of the individuals we're trying to help can't afford basic needs like food and shelter. And we don't want to be prohibitive of them getting access to that. And then we can work on all of the other things, the coaching, the access to additional resources concurrent with that job placement, not as a prerequisite to go out to work. If you're ready and willing to work, we're going to try and get you a job.
I love that. I love that. Now, you mentioned you are exploring sort of new places, new cities to partner with. What other, kind of areas are you growing in? What other things do you foresee in the next 5-10 years for First Step Staffing?
Well, we are actively looking to expand our footprint. So where we can be helpful in cities that are looking for employment solutions, we want to make sure that we can be active in those conversations. I will say too, in the post-pandemic environment, not surprisingly, we see people with the higher acuity of need. Evictions were started to increase after a lot of the moratoriums were lifted. We're seeing a huge group of individuals getting released from the prison system, sometimes even early in a post-COVID environment. So they're back ready, trying to get back on their feet. And we want to reduce recidivism for those individuals. The biggest thing you can do to reduce recidivism is a job. So I think from a First Step perspective, we're recognizing that we have some of those higher acuity barriers coming through our door and want to be active in trying to reduce those. So we introduced the housing program and the financial literacy program and the free upskilling program over the last several years so we can add those additional benefits to the work that we do.
I love that. And if community-based organizations or, just individuals want to make donations or get involved, what would you recommend are some things that they can do?
So, again, 501c3. So we do take donations. It's real easy. That's on our website too. There's a lovely donate button that can direct you.
Press the button.
Yeah, press the button. You can pick a city you want to give it to. You can pick if you want it to make sure that you're supporting somebody's transportation program or helping them get work boots so they can go to work the next day. So that's always, and we will use those donations for very specific purposes so that the individuals we serve can keep that job, because we can give them the access, but we would need to make sure that they can keep the job. And then for other CBOs, for those that are active in the cities where we're already located, if you don't know about us, if your case managers don't know, get the word out, because we want to have as many partners as possible so we can be that pipeline back to employment.
Sure.
And if you're a CBO in a city where we're not located yet, but you're interested in learning more about the model and seeing if perhaps we might come to your city or can provide some advice on how to get something similar started where you are, happy to have those conversations as well. So please definitely reach out. We would love to partner.
I love it. I'm getting so inspired by all your data. It looks like you've got some.
Oh, we got a lot of data. Yes.
Love it. Love it. That's what we need, right?
Yeah.
To continue it. So obviously the work that you're doing is so important. What inspires you personally to keep going and be in a role like this?
I think I go back to that story I tell of the individuals who come in and are in utter shock and awe that they have an access to job and income the next day. Right. And you hear stories of people who have been trying. We had one gentleman who I still hear from, Mr. Woods, had been in prison for several years, was staying at the Salvation Army. He had applied for 20 different jobs and nobody would hire this man. Nobody. He was desperate. He desperately wanted to do something that was not going to end him up back in prison or dead. And came to First Step. So he said he was crying on the street corner outside of Salvation Army. And somebody said, well, if you need a job, just go to First Step. Came in, was able to work the next day, worked several different jobs for us, ultimately ended up at the Braves, was named Employee of the Month, and threw out the first pitch. Literally had this huge transformational moment because of the job. So, I tell people, when you talk to the folks that we hire, we started First Step because we knew people needed income, but we asked them why First Step was important in their life. Not a single one of them has actually said income. They always say things like hope, chance to control my own destiny, dignity, connecting with my family. It's always those intangibles that a job gives us that we don't think about. So I think it's those stories that keep me going every day, because the work is hard. Working with staffing is a 24/7 business, right? Open almost every day of the week. Working with individuals who are coming out of traumatic situation can bring challenges and things get hard sometimes. But when you hear those stories about how the job literally saved somebody's life, it's hard to walk away from it.
I can only imagine. It's so impressive and inspiring to me and to everyone that's listening to hear the incredible impact and opportunity that's out there, particularly for people who may have lost hope, right? Or who are ready to give up. So please, that's why we do this show. That's why we highlight incredible organizations like yours. As we round up our conversation today, which has been so wonderful, such great information, what do you want people to walk away with? What's their call to action who are listening?
Well, I think if you are a business owner, I tell people, take a hard look at your hiring policies and make sure they're as inclusive as possible. Don't be afraid to hire some of those populations you maybe have steered clear of in the past. Yeah. We are a proven business model that tells you it works, or we wouldn't be growing and going into all these new cities. So that's my pitch to business owners, to be an inclusive hire and give those opportunities to people trying to get back on their feet. And for our CBOs and the individuals who maybe are not feeling as hopeful these days, I say that there is opportunity out there, and there are great organizations out there willing to help if you are willing to ask for it. So don't give up hope. And there are groups like First Step and hundreds of others who are out there trying to help people get back on their feet.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being our featured guest today. First Step Staffing CEO, Amelia Nickerson. So great to see you. I knew from the minute I met you just how enthusiastic, committed, passionate, authentic you are, and such a heart for service. So thank you for being the leader, the servant leader of First Step Staffing. And we are just so encouraged and hope that you continue to grow and that your impact and footprint just extends all across the nation, changing people's lives. Thank you for inspiring with the work that you do and for the great work of the organization. Everyone out there, please check out their socials, get connected, share with others, posts. That's only going to help others find out about their services, whether it's individuals who are looking for employment and who fit in some of those target populations, whether that's communities who need a new talent pipeline development partner, whether that's community-based organizations trying to place, and whether that's corporations or businesses that need to hire individuals or want to make some sort of donation. So I am just so pumped up. What a great way to start the new season. I am Jennifer Blaylock, your host for Aspire to Inspire, Chief Energy Officer of Ingenuity Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay connected. We'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us, Ameilia.
Thank you.